Hi, is this the police? I'd like to report a Y-axis crime. I did the math. I was a math major, Kyle. That was 2 burritos. That was 2 extra burritos on this chart. It's being published everywhere.
You really look like you're on spring break in this photo, CJ.
NVIDIA getting paid $500,000. OpenAI who's getting paid $50,000. You have a Curse who's getting paid $1,000. Then you have a Mercor like,
you guys are getting paid?
So they're using AI to create content, get ranked in AI, and then they're using AI tools to figure out how well they're ranking so that they can write more AI content for the AI.
It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma.
Well, getting my leg amputated taught me about B2B SaaS sales. Am I on WebMD or am I on LinkedIn?
He had applied for 5,762 tech jobs.
I don't think that person deserves a job. I wouldn't want to hire somebody who's that non-creative. Prove that you can stand out rather than just hitting submit.
What the hell is Bob's Barricades?
Oh boys, I got a story for you, okay? So,
From Mostly Media, it's Mostly Growth. Go-to-market strategist Kyle Poyar and CFO CJ Gustafson share smart takes on growing revenue and running a company. Pricing, unit economics, AI, leadership, candid insights for CEOs, CFOs, and CROs, or anyone else aspiring to climb to the C-suite. This is Mostly Growth.
welcome back to the Mostly Growth podcast. Kyle, Ben, pleasure to be here with both of you.
Great to see you guys.
Good to be here.
Question for you both. Do you play golf?
Yes.
I do not. I'm horrible. I'm terrible. I will sit in the cart and drink beers, but I'm not a golfer. I call them my garden tools, actually.
You're in Naples, Florida right now and you don't play golf?
I'm here for taxes. I'm not for golf, Kyle.
So Ben, you play. What's your handicap?
Oh, is like 40s or 50s too high? I won't claim to be good myself. I just like getting out there.
But you can finish 18 holes, Ben?
Technically, how many breakfast balls do I get?
Unlimited.
Oh, then 3 handicap.
So I was playing last weekend and it was my first time out this year, but I remember I played in high school. My parents were adamant that I would need golf for business and to do well in my career. I think I've played golf 0 times for work so far, so they were wrong about that. But I played, and I will tell you, golf makes you really sore. No one talks about that, but 18 holes of golf carrying your clubs, that's pretty tough when you're in your 30s. You don't get any grace for that. So if you try telling your significant other that you can't walk the dog because you're too sore from 18 holes of golf, doesn't go over very well.
Okay, I don't even know where to start there. So how heavy is this bag? How heavy are these clubs?
I mean, not even that. I have a light bag, but you're carrying it for like 5+ hours, man. That's a lot. Plus all the beer.
I thought you were going to say I had like 1,000 ounces of liquids in there, and it's a lot lighter by the end of the round. The problem I have with golf is A, I don't like to do things that I'm not good at, but B, it just takes up so much time that like if I ever spent half a day away from my family and then came back, I would need like brownie points for like another 2 weeks. So like some of my friends will go golfing and they'll disappear for the whole day because, there's lunch, there's drinks after. Like, I just don't know how with your significant other, people are able to pull off like the negotiation that goes along with it. I feel like you got to be like a hostage witness negotiator to play golf every weekend.
We're going to go back to the Mad Men era. All right, well, tangents aside, Ben, what do we have up first?
First up is T2D3 Dead. Did AI kill it?
Well, CJ, you're the finance guy. Can you explain what T2D3 is in the first place? It's a little nerdy.
It is. It's extremely nerdy. So it stands for triple, triple, double, double, double. And so it's how do you get to 100 million within those 5 years? So it's what a lot of VCs will tell you, this tried and true pattern where you start, let's just say, I think you technically have to start at 1.5 million or 2 million, but then you triple to like 6, then to 18, then to, check my math here, something approaching 40, but eventually you get to 100 million. Oh, it's right on the screen right there. Now I look like an idiot. 54, 18 times 3 is 50. I don't like public math. It gives me anxiety. I have prompt anxiety, Kyle.
Once you get to 18, all you have to do is double. So that math gets pretty easy. But all right, so this is not a burger from Wendy's. This is an actual concept. And so the idea is like best-in-class software companies can hit 100 million ARR in roughly 5 years after product market fit. It's kind of like what a company should look like if a VC dreamed it up in a lab.
And it's from the traditional software era, usually when you were throwing field sales at the mix and trying to sell these larger deals. But I think it's come under a lot of scrutiny lately with these AI companies that are just blowing these growth numbers out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, you just keep seeing these headlines and this like viral chart of like time to 100 million. And remember a couple of years ago, it was Wiz hitting 100 million ARR in 18 months. And then Cursor came out of nowhere and hit 100 million ARR in 12 months. Now Lovable saying that they did it in 8 months. So, from a VC perspective, why try to back companies that are going to take 5 years to hit this milestone when you can back a company that does it in under a year?
But the bone that I have to pick with it, and you tell me if I'm just like an old man yelling at windmills here, is that like the ARR that we're saying is 100 million is not the same ARR. It's most of the time negative margin. And so I recently wrote about this, that I think a lot of these companies, they're calling GMV gross merchandise value, which is traditionally used in a marketplace sense. You can also apply it to a reseller, like in AWS when you're reselling GCP or cloud credits. I don't think it's the same type of revenue. Basically, they're passing through this large number that is predicated on the services of someone else. So the example that I go to that was just in the news is Mercor, which is a lot closer to Craigslist than it is to Cursor. So it's basically replacing what Scale AI did with some other types of job profiles around it for companies to post AI native roles and fill them. And so that's like a marketplace example. And they said we got to 500 million in ARR, which is like way beyond T2D3 within 17 months, like breaks every land and speed record. But to me, that is not ARR. They're apparently, according to the information, only making 30% of that. So they're making 150 million. Then you have to question if that's even gross margin accretive. And so then you can follow the rabbit and say, well, let's look at some of these other companies like a Cursor. I think they have an amazing product. But could you argue that a lot of the revenue that they're bundling up is actually passing through the services that an OpenAI, the inference that an Anthropic would provide?
Well, yeah, I think there's a couple things to unpack here, right? So ARR, in many ways, is kind of the core North Star metric in software. So ARR is typically annual recurring revenue. And we think of it as really the basis for the health of a company and the valuation of a company. So we often think not in terms of profit multiples for software companies, but ARR multiples in terms of figuring out how much a company is worth. And for traditional software as a service companies, ARR was highly recurring. Often net dollar retention rates were 100% plus. Customers were very sticky, so you rarely lost a customer, and any sort of expansion offset that customer loss. It was high margin, so most public SaaS companies had 70% plus margins, many had 80% plus, and so it was something that was very predictable. It was very high margin, and while there was a good amount of cost to acquire a customer with sales, marketing, and onboarding, once you acquired that customer is going to be really profitable for a long period of time. And what you're saying is, even ignoring some of the questions we have about AI companies and their retention rates and their gross margin, if all they are is a wrapper around ChatGPT or Anthropic's products, they're essentially not even a real software company. They're more like a cloud reseller than a traditional SaaS company.
You nailed it. They're more akin to a middleman. And I think, I don't want to go too accounting dorky here, but are you an agent or are you a principal? And what it comes down to is, can you control the end pricing? And a lot of these software companies, they look and smell like a typical SaaS company. They may bill you once a month or once a year. They may have a usage-based meter dashboard, but like they can't control the end pricing of the inference and the compute that they're passing through.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. And I think that's where starts to be unclear for these AI companies. How many of them have a real defensible product and they've built something that's not just a pass through of what they're getting from OpenAI and others, but is its own store of value on its own. So maybe they've got their own LLMs that they train, their own custom data. Like there's something really valuable about what they're doing, very independent of who else they plug in. And then there's folks that are really just passing through the inference. And I think about in SaaS, everyone used AWS, and it was expected that maybe even 10 percentage points of your revenue might go to your AWS bill was one of your most expensive bills in terms of the cost of goods sold. But we didn't think of the product as really just a database and some compute that's sort of with a little wrapper of a UI around it. We thought of it as that is a small portion of the overall value for the company. In these cases, it's a little bit harder to tell from the outside. You really have to dig in, I think, to figure out, is this just sort of a wrapper around ChatGPT, or is there something real here?
So there's this meme from a criminally underrated movie that I love. It's called We're the Millers. Have you seen that movie, Kyle?
I don't think I have.
Oh man. Okay. So basically it's these four people who aren't a family act like they're a family in an RV. I know you don't like RVs, Kyle. And they're taking a trip which has like some drug and illegal elements to it to transport something, okay? But they have to act like they're a family just to put up with the whole guys. And there's a part in the movie where Jennifer Aniston finds out that Jason Sudeikis' character is getting paid $500,000 for making this trip. And she says, I can't believe you're making $500,000 and I'm only making $50,000. And then his quote unquote fake daughter goes, you're making $50,000. I'm only making $1,000. And then his quote unquote son goes, wait, we're getting paid?
Wait, you guys are getting paid?
And so I feel like it's the same thing with these AI companies. And I made a meme on the post that I did this weekend where it's like NVIDIA is the one who's getting paid $500,000. Then you have someone like an OpenAI who's getting paid $50,000. You have a Cursor who's getting paid $1,000. Then you have a Mercor like, wait, you guys are making money on this? And that's kind of like the unit economic value chain that I think a lot of us are trying to figure out. Because to your point, $100 million in ARR from 5 years ago that was doing this T2D3 is not fundamentally, in my opinion, the same 100 million in ARR that we're seeing now.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. And it's a great analogy. Where my head goes with all this stuff is that it's not that ARR is dead. There is still value in this sort of ARR metric, and especially for traditional SaaS companies, valuations based on ARR. I just think the idea that we can treat ARR as one size fits all is absolutely dead, because there's so many nuances. We've got software businesses in vertical SaaS, for example, that have a subscription software component, a usage-based component, a fintech component, a payments component. We have Navan that's primarily usage-based across how the products are being used. We have AI products that might look like subscription products, but are really lower margin, lower stickiness kinds of products. We have marketplaces that look like SaaS from the outside, but are actually a marketplace business model. I just think there's so much more variety now than there used to be in the industry. And that makes the idea of just having ARR as this rule of thumb that we can all trust, makes it a lot harder to trust.
Okay, I'm going to read you a text from a VC, because it's not just the health of the ARR, the composition of the ARR, it's also how it's being calculated. Like, it's truly the Wild West out there. He said, I've seen companies take 21 days worth of revenue after monetizing, divide by 21 and multiply by 365 equals 5 million in ARR.
Oh, man.
You can just
that
measure
is brutal.
anything these days. You can just take the last hour, multiply that by 24, and then multiply it by 365. And look, we've turned hourly revenue into ARR, Kyle.
What's so bizarre about this world that we're in right now is that all these companies are building in public, and so much of their growth comes from their own success and talking about their success, and then the VCs that back them because of their success, that they are highly motivated to keep pumping like all of the signs of success, all of the things that they're doing well, and share that externally for validation. And I think that creates this additional incentive to kind of like look better than you actually are. It's pretty dark right now.
And a company did get in trouble for that. Remember 11X? They were the first one to come out with the idea of the AI SDR, Kyle.
I do remember them. What were they doing? It? They were a counting customer who were in pilots and about to churn as ARR.
Yeah. They were taking customers that were in pilots who like hadn't signed contracts, and they were turning it into ARR. So they were going further than what I call, like, if you want to trick your investors, tell them about your contracted annual revenue, which is when you take the exit year of a multi-year contract. They were going way beyond that. They were taking customers that were on, called a 3-month trial, and calling all of that ARR.
I think I remember the other thing they were doing is they kept putting all these logos on their site that look incredibly impressive. And then folks would call the logos and be like, we're not a customer.
No way.
Not best practice, I should say. For many of these companies, these are, younger founding teams, right? They're companies that are doing really well. But if in order to break through the noise and be a kind of viral hit company, you've got to be putting out metrics like we got 100 million ARR in 12 months. If that's so critical to your continued growth is having that publicity, it's just going to create these really bad incentives in the market.
I know this is not related to ARR, but it's a similar company that had this. Another VC texted me. Someone told me yesterday.
You're getting all these texts, the VC secrets. We've got to create another newsletter.
I'm the AI Walter Cronkite, just breaking news over here. Someone told me yesterday they went to an AI startup that said on the entrance, quote, "No dogs allowed. If you own one, you shouldn't work here because they'll distract you from our mission."
It's all about that 996. If you got a dog, you can't do 996.
Dude, I'm too much of a dog person. Randy Jackson. It's gonna be a no for me, dog.
Oh man. All right, Ben. What do we have next?
All right, next up, SEO is down 20 to 40%. Is AEO the savior? How do we get recommended by ChatGPT?
CJ, I have a little fun exercise I wanted to try here. Could we spin up ChatGPT, Ben?
Hell yeah.
CJ, what do you think your newsletter is known for? Like, what is the search
This
term?
recommends your newsletter over mine. Are you just trying to?
No, I'm just curious. What do you want your newsletter to be known for? Like best newsletter for like startup CFOs? Like what do you want to be known for?
Let's go with that. What's the best newsletter for running finance at a startup?
All right. Moment of truth here. All right. You're number 2 on that list. You've got the startup finance newsletter, mostly metrics, Tom Tunga's CV Insights, strictly VC. I don't show up anywhere, but I don't know enough about finance to be on any of these lists. You're doing a pretty good job, CJ. A few things that you might notice when you look at screens like this, though, there's not really a direct link out to mostly metrics from these sites. And what's fascinating that's happening is that folks are turning to ChatGPT or to Google not to search for something and get a list of links that they then turn to. They're going in and they're actually looking for recommendations. So best newsletter for X, best CRM, best startup CRM. And for companies, I think there's both like a huge mindset change to go from the traditional SEO to this new world, but also like a huge opportunity. I mean, if you're getting ChatGPT to tell everyone you're the best newsletter out there for them, that's a whole new growth channel kind of hiding in plain sight.
How do I lean into this though? Because it picked up an aggregator who obviously used the terms that were more similar to what we typed in, Kyle. Are you going about this like I have to work backwards towards what the title has to be to answer someone's specific question?
So what I'm finding is that, obviously things are changing really fast, but what's the LLMs like right now is comparative listicles where you write the most definitive content for your specific niche. So let's say you're a CRM for startups that specializes in having great automations. If that's your thing, you want to write a whole piece about like best startup CRMs and then have like a guide to what to look for, have a list of all the players that have CRMs, their pros and cons, highlight why automation is really important, highlight why you're the best at automation. And that type of content is going to be what ChatGPT and others actually even steal from and reference as what they recommend. What I often also see is ChatGPT will blatantly steal what you write. So you actually want to chunk it up in short paragraphs and make it easy for the LLMs to steal from you and just spit out what you have to say. You also want to keep these posts updated so it looks really fresh for the LLMs. Tables are better than images for these posts. The LLMs have a harder time reading images, so you want like a table format or just a list format. And then you want this content to be mentioned elsewhere as well. So ideally, you have this list, you get it listed on LinkedIn, on user-generated content sites like Reddit. That shows that you have the definitive list, which points ChatGPT to your list rather than someone else's list.
And that's what I found most fascinating about this, because looking real quick, only one of these came from the actual source it's recommending. So I think there has to be some collusion here, Kyle, where I have to write I have to write a post about the best go-to-market and pricing newsletters and put it on mine, and then maybe you can return the favor.
And maybe I will write one and put it on mine, and we'll both list each other's as like number 2. There is probably some collusion here.
Hey, it's all in the game, right? Like someone's going to figure out the game.
It is a game. It's very similar to the SEO game though, right? Like with SEO, you would try to write that piece that you're going to get featured in the top Google search that everyone has so that people land on your guide to inbound marketing if you're HubSpot, your glossary on, how to become a marketer. It's basically the SEO game, but just with a different content style and format. I think what I find funny is more companies I'm talking to are saying, I now have to create all this content. I've got to create content in a format that these LLMs like. I'm going to use AI to create this content. So they're using AI to create content to then get ranked in AI. And then they're using AI tools to figure out how well they're ranking so that they can write more AI content for the AI.
It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma.
It's a very AI-centric web environment these days.
So who is this change best for and worst for? And so I know that it picks up a lot of Reddit content. It loves to scrape that because it looks at it as user-generated content, not company-generated content. Companies like a HubSpot who have relied on this. Companies like a G2 for software recommendations, Kyle. How does this change how they think about going to market?
So a lot of businesses that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years, they built these incredible SEO drivers where they just had this huge backlog of content that would show up in these very popular Google searches. And so anyone that had their growth strategy built around SEO is actually very challenged right now. I think HubSpot has seen, there have been some charts showing a 20 to 40% drop off in their search volume because of these changes, both the rise of ChatGPT, but also Google adding AI overviews and, featured snippets on their posts. But there's a bunch of companies that have relied on SEO as a growth channel that are in a tough place. I think the companies that are benefiting from it are companies that can just leapfrog and say, it would normally take years to develop that like top position and domain authority for SEO purposes. So like doing organic search optimization was just very time consuming and took a lot of work to see the results. But once you saw the results, it just kept paying off year after year after year. What's great is that startups can kind of leapfrog that and say, we don't have all this massive investment in SEO. We can just jump straight to AEO. In many ways, they can, even if they're a brand new startup that doesn't have as much traction or authority out there, they can get listed by ChatGPT as, the best product for X.
So I've talked about this a little bit before, but I had a failed startup in the travel space. In the travel space, especially the booking.coms of the world, they have made their nut on SEO and also paid. I think booking.com they pay Google the most every single year for paid search. Me and my wife would stay up super late at night trying to tag the SEO correctly of every single tour and activity that was on our marketplace. So like jet ski tour, Miami, Biscayne Bay, something like that, and coming up with all the different terms that you needed. If the tides were changing like they are now, a startup that didn't work out like mine, I may have gone about it differently, and this may have been actually an opportunity rather than a threat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing is that for either startups or established companies, the metrics that you use to track success have really changed. And so, these days, your content might still be getting a lot of impressions in Google, but since people are reading it in an AI overview, they're not clicking anywhere. And so what I tend to find is that, for instance, clicks to your website, traffic are going down, but there's still the same number of people out searching for the thing that you do or help companies with. There's a difference between the demand creation and the demand capture. So demand creation is how someone hears about your brand or finds out that you're a viable solution for them. Demand capture is just the last thing they do before they end up on your site. So someone might go to ChatGPT, figure out, oh, wow, CJ's newsletter is awesome. I got to go figure that out. They might then type your newsletters, ocmetrics.com, into their browser and be direct traffic. or they might go to Google and say, hey, I'm looking for the Mostly Metrics newsletter. And so that branded search where someone searches on Google for something they already know about, and I'm talking to companies that are telling me that's 75, 80, 85% of their search traffic is from branded search, people searching for you when they already know you. And that's where you can't really rely on tagging that as like, this came from SEO. Really, it came from somewhere else, but it's captured as SEO. So more and more folks need to start asking, it's as painful as this is, asking things like, how did you hear about us? Or adding a how did you hear about us field on your website.
Kyle, it's only fair if we see if you show up on this.
I don't think I show up very well, so this will be interesting. You could type in best startup SaaS growth newsletters. This is a moment of truth, but I don't think I show up very well.
Oh, number
He knew
two
it.
also.
He knew it.
Yeah, he planned this.
I didn't actually plan that. I had searched that myself about a month ago and was really poorly rated. So someone must have written about me recently.
Look, it's a listicle though. Once again, it's not
another
your
one of
site it's
these
pointing to.
listicles.
This is updated 2 weeks ago.
All right. Well, I guess the play is just become friends with people who like writing listicles, huh?
Wait, was I on there? Go down.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle, I just forwarded Ben this email. So this is a daily recap that Beehive sends me every day. So I'm still trying to convince you to come with me over to the dark side to Beehive. You're on Substack. They don't give you this breakdown. And so it said I got 95 subscribers that day. My Google traffic is way down. So I think this corroborates the point you're making. I got 15 apparently from Google. I used to get over 30 a day from Google. I emailed Beehive. I was like, WTF, what is direct/none? And he's like, well, people are typing your website directly somewhere. I was like, not that many people know my actual website.
No,
And
this means half of your new subscribers came from people just typing in your website.
But like it blows my mind. I don't know how that could be the case.
It's either, I think, someone sees the Mostly Metrics name, here's it on a podcast, and they just type it in their browser, right? They might also be at work and someone sends them the link directly to go to.
Okay.
And so there's no like referral on the link. It's just like they go to that link. But there's so much activity these days that it's community driven and like word of mouth. And we've never been great at tracking that through stats like attribution systems on where a sign up came from. But now, like this sort of ChatGPT explosion is really forcing us to go a lot deeper in attribution than we used to need to.
And I feel better about that. I got really nervous because, Ben, if you go back to the email, checkout, is ChatGPT on there?
Yeah.
How many?
1.
Yeah. I look at that like 1, not good. Used to get 30 from Google. So in my mind, I'm down bad, right? But Kyle's telling me maybe they're seeing you on ChatGPT. And we just don't have the attribution tools to say that it was from there. Maybe it's more akin to like you see a billboard and you type it in later.
Exactly. And that's where what's really frustrating for someone that's like more of a finance or CEO lens is you've got to start looking at brand KPIs as growth KPIs. So one of the things I do for my newsletter is I have it connected to Google Search Console. So that way I can see not just what's the traffic and subscribers coming in from Google, but what are the exact search terms. And I can tell you the top 5 are essentially like growth unhinged, Kyle Poyar misspelled by misspelling Kyle Poyar misspelled by misspelling Poyar. All of the most popular terms are people that are already knowing about my newsletter and seeking it out on their own.
I'll take a day of almost 100 subs. Like, don't get me wrong, but as a CFO, I'm like, I don't know where half of these are coming from or like how they're finding me. This is a brave new world.
Yeah, now imagine you're in marketing and you're asking for budget and you're trying to figure out where to put budget towards. The CFO is looking at this data and the head of marketing is like, we got to put money into ChatGPT. And you're like, ChatGPT brought 1 subscriber this week or this day. Like, I'm going to put traffic into direct. They're like, no, that's not a thing, CJ. Yeah, tough position to be in, but that's where the best marketers that I talk to have a mix of attribution methods. So they do look at click-based attribution. They also have a how did you hear about us field. So after someone signs up or requests a demo, they can figure out like what that person says brought them. And then occasionally they'll run incrementality tests. So they'll turn something off or they'll turn it back on and they'll see if there was a dip in subscribers or growth when that happens so that they can kind of say, hey, look, when we ran a TV ad in the Denver region, like we got more business from Denver. To actually taking a lot of the e-commerce and B2C attribution tactics and starting to think about how do we apply it to B2B as well.
something that I found extremely fascinating at Parts Tech, which was selling to auto mechanics who are not the most tech forward people, is we had an absolutely stellar return on paid ads through Bing. Do you know why Bing worked better than Google, Kyle?
I would think the ads are way less expensive there. And I guess you've got some old school customers still on Internet Explorer browsers.
Nailed
where
it.
Bing is built in.
The auto mechanic down your street has not downloaded Google Chrome. He takes whatever browser is already on the computer, and Bing was installed on all these Windows computers everywhere. And so if you wanted to reach them, you just funneled it all to Bing, because none of them were on Mozilla Firefox. None of them, that's still a thing. None of them were on Perplexity. Just go old school, baby. We were like the highest paid Bing customers.
All right, next up, the tech job market is brutal. Everyone wants to hire AI instead of people. So answer me this. How does someone get a job today?
This is such an interesting topic. I was reading a New York Times post where the headline was, "Goodbye $165,000 tech jobs. Student coders seek work at Chipotle." And, the data seems to be backing this up. The Federal Reserve Bank came out with stats around which majors had the highest unemployment rates among college grads between 2022 and 27. Turns out computer science and computer engineering majors had 6.1% and 7.5% unemployment, which is about double the unemployment rate among recent biology and art history graduates. So maybe the first piece of advice is become an art history major. I don't know. What do you think, CJ?
Art history. Isn't it interesting that parents would say, like, you should pick a real job, like, I don't know, become a coder or something, rather than doing like this medieval European degree in who knows what? And that's what AI apparently came for first. But I don't know. I've been seeing it differently from the finance angle. So I actually just launched a recruiting arm, not to plug it at all. It's called Mostly Talent. Get it? But the CFOs that have been coming to me are looking for a specific type of person with a specific type of experience. So to me, I'm trying to figure out, is this more about a experience mismatch or people getting displaced by technology completely?
Yeah, I think as I dug into it, part of it is that I think there's just way more people graduating with computer science majors than there have been in the past. And then at the same time, less demand for it. So the article from the New York Times said that there's now over 170,000 undergrads majoring in computer science, which was double what it was in 2014. Like when I was graduating back in 2010, it's kind of unusual to be a computer science major. Like that was a hard major. You were only really doing it if you were a hardcore nerd. Nowadays, everyone saw this as the golden ticket to getting a high paid job in tech. And I think that as essentially the number of people majoring in the field has boomed, we've also seen vibe coding and tools like Cursor that mean you can actually do a lot more with AI and one experienced programmer. And you don't actually need that junior programmer necessarily on the team, or you could do with fewer of them.
I think you're pointing out like a supply and demand imbalance, especially because there's this lag time where you have all these people going through school. And then by the time they get out, the environment that they thought they were walking into fundamentally changed. So an example that I was thinking of were people who wanted to get into banking and graduate, like they go into school in 2003, 2004, they get out in 2008, 2009. That is an exogenous change to the environment, right? And eventually it comes back with the economy. But it's similar in the sense that you go with this idea of becoming a coder at Google or YouTube or a startup, and then you come out the other end and the demand for those jobs has just fundamentally changed.
You just used the term exogenous. What did you major in?
I don't know, but I can't spell it, so they didn't teach me that.
Yeah, I think there's that supply and demand imbalance. I think there's also some like practical things for folks that are new grads. So one person in the piece said that he had applied for 5,762 tech jobs, and that resulted in 13 job interviews and no full-time jobs. One of the things that's been happening is I think job applications are just exploding. If you remotely qualify for a position, it's pretty easy to have an AI generated submission and AI generated cover letter and so on. And so some people are just flooding the zone, applying for thousands of jobs. And then on the flip side, the businesses themselves are having AI screen the resumes and pick which candidates to interview. So if you're fresh out of college and you don't have as much experience, you were just not going to stand out through that process. I think you've got to really work your network and hustle to find positions. And often that means trying to find positions before they're posted where you have a leg up over this kind of AI fueled insanity of online job postings. Someone out in the job market right now, I'd like find companies in my area of positions that seem up my alley. And then I'd go to their events. I would try to network my way into someone that works there, even if they weren't on the team where I'd wanted to work. I'd maybe try to build something custom to them tied to a project that that company was working on. I would go really deep around like 10 or 12 companies rather than trying to apply for 1,000 jobs. And that way I could spend like, 50x, 100x as much time per company as with that mass market application process.
I'm going to sound like an asshole here, but over 5,000 applications and you didn't get a job. Like, I don't think that person deserves a job because they're slamming their head against the wall and not changing their strategy. You can be more thoughtful about it. Now, maybe I am a jerk and this person did go out and email and go to all these events and stuff, but apply online and you're definitely using AI. If you're applying over 5,000 times, that is the path of least resistance. I wouldn't want to hire somebody who's that non-creative to go about it. Like, use your time for something to prove that you can stand out rather than just hitting submit 5,000 times over and complaining about it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Now, so you were CFO, you hired people. Now you're running a kind of recruiting arm within your business empire. What's the most impressive thing you've seen a candidate do to stand out and try to get a job?
I had someone give a business model breakdown on parts tech that I didn't ask for and how we monetized. And a lot of it was wrong, but the exhibits they created and the thought they put into it were awesome. The other thing I've seen work really well is people when they apply doing a video so you can see, and I wasn't even worried about an AI person at that time, but just to see the passion on their face. And it's a very little thing to do. Create a 3-minute Loom video and send that off with it. I think that's a way to show that I care enough to really explain why I want this job in a way that separates me from the best, because everything else is just text, but it kind of breaks down that third wall when you see somebody on video.
Yeah, I've seen that too. And as from a hiring manager standpoint, if you're hiring someone like fresh out of undergrad or limited experience, you're going to have to do a lot of work to train them up. And so having someone that shows like they're passionate, they're going above and beyond, they're really eager to learn and they care about this role, like that to me is a stronger signal than like them getting a 4.0 GPA from like X college. I'd much rather see the passion.
I worked with a CEO. I want your opinion on this, Kyle. And he used to say, learn on someone else's time. I will not hire anybody out of college. I want you to have gone through another program before so I can benefit from that learning experience. In today's environment, if you had open spots, would you be willing to hire somebody straight out of college or not?
It really depends on the role, but honestly, so I was in consulting for 6 years at Simon Kucher. We hired people fresh out of undergrad. We hired people out of MBA. We hired people out of other jobs. The single best source of quality folks who eventually made partner were those hired right out of undergrad.
Really?
They could be trained on our methodologies from day one. They had no preconceived biases. By us being able to train them in the way that we did things and kind of frameworks we had, they were way more ready to learn those than if they had already learned something similar elsewhere. They just wanted to force fit what they learned in the past onto something, where it didn't maybe work as well or didn't make as much sense. And so I personally like that green candidate. It is harder to, interview them and, figure out which of them has the highest potential, but I actually like recent grads.
Good take. Ben, what do we got up next?
Next up, is your board quiet quitting?
Oh, this is a spicy topic. I saw this as one of the headlines in the Only CFO newsletter, and it just really made me laugh. Have you ever had a board member quiet quit, CJ?
Yeah, it was you.
That was loud quitting.
Oh, sorry. Shout out to Tim Keebler. You never quit on me, man. You got my back. Well, what does it mean to quiet quit? Well, what was the context of this? Because I know an employee quiet quit. I actually have a couple of friends who quiet quit and then they got loud fired. But what does it mean in this context?
So, we talked at the beginning about this kind of, is T2D3 dead in the age of AI? Companies are hitting 100 million ARR 12 months. I think that for many folks out there, especially more traditional SaaS companies, growth has slowed down to maybe 10, 15, 20%. They're at some scale, 10, 20, 30 million ARR, but not growing that fast, not that profitable, and not that sexy AI thing that their investors are scrambling to invest in. And so the board members are kind of disengaging, and they're saying, hey, we're actually focused on what's new and trying to reposition ourselves as AI and trying to find those hot AI companies. And so the board members are kind of just backing off of their board commitments and not particularly engaged with those kind of older school seeming SaaS companies that they thought were hot in the peak COVID cloud boom. And now in the age of AI, don't look as cool anymore.
What's always been interesting to me is talking to investors who are on boards. They always tell me that the companies they spend the most time and mental bandwidth on are those that are doing the worst. So how much can you do to help a company that's high flying, that's just selling stuff off the shelves? I guess if it's a cursor, you can help them find sales reps, you can help them find engineers, etc. But for the most part, a rising tide lifts all ships. What happens to the companies in the middle that aren't total write-offs and struggling, and not the companies that don't need your help because you don't want to mess up a good thing? There is kind of this gray area, and I can see that I can theorize that a lot of companies there would have board members that are at least just mentally checked out.
Totally. And they, these are still, members of the board. They still maybe reply to your updates and your financials. Like, they're still part of the company. They can't just totally back away, but they just stop being proactive. So they stop making introductions. They stop asking questions. And then, potentially a less quiet quitting model is that they start pushing for M&A, or when they do ask, it's, hey, have we thought about M&A? Have we thought about positioning ourselves for an exit? And so I think the other thing for me that I start to see is if a board member starts having someone more junior show up more regularly on the board, and they start stepping away, or they start missing a couple board meetings, and clearly they're posturing as if it's not you, it's them, and their bandwidth is tough, and yada yada yada. But people start stepping back from these commitments. It's a signal that they're prioritizing other companies.
I'm trying to think what I would do personally if I was in this situation. I would want to have a talk with them, but even then, you wonder if they would admit to it. Do you just keep on doing your thing until push comes to shove and they ask you to actually sell? What would your mindset be?
The first thing that comes to mind is one of the main reasons you need investors is for additional financing. And so if you're still burning capital and you're looking for, some sort of additional safe, or, whatever it is, some sort of bridge financing, you're a lot less likely to get it if your investors are quiet quitting and, hoping that you position for an exit at some point. And so the first thing would be just get to break even or profitable as quickly as you can so that you can control your own destiny. And I think the other thing is you've just got to change the expectations you have of your board. So for many folks, they see the board as this important body that's going to provide strategic direction, help them make better decisions. And often isn't the case with VC boards. And I think folks need to surround themselves with peers, outside advisors, or just bring independence onto the board so that they can still get that strategic direction, but get it from people that are truly invested in the company's success.
I like that. Plan, Kyle. Ben, what do we get next?
All right, so it's time to move on to business blunders, hospital bed LinkedIn photos.
Okay, so you might think I'm crazy, but there's some people nodding their head on the way to work right now listening to this. Kyle, have you ever seen somebody post a picture on LinkedIn where they're in a hospital bed, and it's essentially this virtue signaling of I grind so hard that I either put myself in the hospital, or they have like a needle in their arm, but they're still typing on their computer? Like, how have we gotten to this point in society?
I have not seen the hospital bed one yet, but I have seen the I'm asleep on the couch because I worked all night on this new release, that when it's like a staged photo that clearly has been put together to make it look like you were asleep on the couch. But yeah, the hospital bed is a new one for me.
You have to go more and more extreme. It's like on social media, in order to stand out, you got to do the next thing. I had 2 hospital bed photos in 1 week. Scroll down, Ben.
2 in 1 week. Who are you following?
I'm not making this up.
I think this is on you and not on LinkedIn.
A personal post and a piece of advice: don't be the best dressed guy in the ER. Okay. Am I on WebMD or am I on LinkedIn?
I thought what was bad was someone posting honeymoon photos and saying what they learned from their honeymoon about how to do business. But hospital photos really takes it to another level.
Well, getting my leg amputated taught me about B2B SaaS sales.
Well, so careful, ZJ. Are you going to share your new baby news on LinkedIn?
Oh, 1,000%. You know how many subscribers I'm going to get from that?
Because that might be in a hospital room. Like, we may see that photo, and
I
we may
already
have
have
to
the
revisit
post down in my mind, Ben. But I won't be on the bed because I won't have given birth. But I
You don't
will
want to do
try-
skin to skin, like show that on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'll have my shirt off. I'll be tan. You can call me out at that time.
My business blunder was going to be a lot less aggressive and performative. It was more the opposite. People who like quiet quit their LinkedIn account. Something that I have seen for a while, but just keep seeing is that executive posting an update about their company, whether it's like a fundraise announcement, a new hire, some new product release, and they tag at, and then it's supposed to be like their own company or a colleague, but it's just like not tagged. It's not blue.
It's not
And you
hyperlinked.
see the at, and clearly it's like someone copied and pasted some sort of like ghost written content and was told, hey, you need to post this on your LinkedIn account, and did the bare minimum to post it. I almost think some of that is like passive aggressive behavior that they probably didn't want to post in the first place, but that always cracks me up when I see it.
Like the marketing manager sent them a Google Doc with this to paste in, and they don't. Because if you paste it right in, I've pasted things in before that I've written elsewhere, you still have to at and then like do a backspace so it shows up and then click it. It means they had such little effort put into it that they couldn't even tag it right.
Exactly. And it's given me throwbacks to my days when I ran marketing and we would release our annual benchmarks report and we create this like social media copy for different people to use. And I swear like half the posts didn't include the ats correctly. So painful.
Not to be ageist, but it's got strong boomer vibes to it.
It's kind of like the FU money. It's like you've reached a point where you just don't care anymore. You know, something I keep seeing on LinkedIn is this chart from Ramp showing 996 and how people are increasingly working and expensing their meals over the weekend. You pointed out something interesting about this chart to me, CJ.
Hi, is this the police? I'd like to report a y-axis crime. It's really, really bad. What? Kyle, you brought a chart last week from OpenAI. I was inspired to bring something a little more subtle, but I think 10 times more criminal. At least the OpenAI one was like, look, we're just putting stuff out there. We're not really making the bar widths look right. What data? I love you, Ramp, but you're not serious people. Look at this y-axis, Kyle. It's 0.2 and 0.4%. Am I wild thinking this?
I love how the height of that chart makes it look like there's this like extreme difference. Like all of a sudden there's this huge phenomenon happening, and it's a 0.4% growth in something that was probably low to begin with. And so I was not a math major, as we established. I went to Brown. We don't believe in math at Brown, but if say 10% of your employees are working on a Saturday, and there's a 0.4% increase in how many of them spend money on a corporate card, that's a really, really small number of people.
I did the math. I was a math major, Kyle. That was 2 burritos. That was 2 extra burritos on this chart. It's being published everywhere. And they're sitting on a treasure trove of some of the most interesting data out there. It's self-inflicted wounds with these charts sometimes.
And the drop on Thursday seems to be dramatically higher, considering there are probably way more
That's the real
expenses
story,
that happened
right?
on Thursday than on Saturday. So they should explain that.
Thursday's the real story. Something happened there with happy hour. I need to know.
All right, next up, pricing in the real world. Answer me this. What the hell is Bob's Barricades?
Oh, boys, I got a story for you, okay? So I've driven all over Florida and the Southwest, and there's always construction going on, okay? And on the top of every orange cone barricade, the type where it's like, don't drive over here or you'll hit something, big orange cones, it says Bob's Barricades, which first of all, one of the best business names ever, okay? And so I noticed this, kind of file it away. We get to the airport in Naples this weekend, driver's picking us up, and there's a cone right next to where he's picking us up. I'm like, Bob's Barricades, I see this everywhere. Who is this Bob guy? And he said, CJ, you ever heard this story? I was like, no. He's like, first of all, this is the craziest part of the story. Guy's name isn't even Bob, okay? Guy's name is Happy, okay? Happy owns a barricade empire all over the Southwest, Okay.
And he's got an amazing website to boot.
Amazing. And I was looking at the revenue online. There's a report filed somewhere that they made like $36 million in 1 year. I was doing the math. I think it's probably closer to $100 million a year. And this is where the pricing part comes in. I was talking to the driver. He says, you don't buy these, you rent them for whatever project you're doing. And Bob, Happy, they charge you 50 cents per barricade per day. In some parts of Southwest Florida, there are thousands of barricades in a construction site, Kyle. Every one of these projects, we're both from Boston. We know the big dig, overruns. They sign up for 3 years. That thing's not moving for 10 years, okay? So he gets
So telling me there's a usage-based pricing opportunity here.
This is exactly... Happy is the original usage pricing gangster, Kyle. This guy is raking in the cash, 50 cents a day. You see him everywhere. And so I did a field trip. I was with my family at the beach. I go, honey, hold on.
You really look like you're on spring break in this photo, CJ. This is from this week?
This is from yesterday. This is how I dress, okay? I don't have much fashion sense. I went over and took a picture with one of Bob's barricades. It's a little banged up, but I mean, I doubt the maintenance on these things is too extraordinary. And just this one area, which was barely under construction, had 4 of them. So he was raking in $2 a day just for this beach parking lot setup. What's your reaction to this?
You know, I love this, but the 50 cents a day seems so reasonable. Like, it seems so cheap. Like, how is he making any money? But then you just imagine how long these things must stay up for, and just how he's probably cornered and become like the only game in town for this thing. That is so smart. Very little costs, obviously, involved in this business, especially once you've installed the barricade. And so I love this model.
I went down the rabbit hole. I was watching YouTube videos on this guy, Happy, okay?
Really did.
He's in this nondescript office next to a Skyline Chili, and he's sitting there with his business partner. The office hasn't been updated in probably 30 years. This is the video.
He's eating his spaghetti with chili on it, and
he has
shredded
a voice,
cheese on top of that.
He has a voice that sounds like he smokes 5 cigars a day. He's wearing this massive hat, and they're trying to ask him how much money he makes. You can check on his watch. He's wearing an extremely expensive watch, and there's a Ferrari key on the desk. So life is good for Bob.
This is literally the exact profile of business that I think private equity wants to back and just really can't find.
Yeah, look at the hat.
That is awesome. What's last for us, Ben?
Yeah. All right. So last up, something I tried this week. Kyle, take it away.
All right. So I'm running a survey right now, and I tried Typeform. Been around for 10, 15, I don't know, maybe 20 years. They have made some improvements that are actually awesome. So I was able to just copy my survey questions, paste them like just straight from Google Docs, and it had already set up the survey for me, and it was like 99% right. This is AI that is like actually helpful for people. I remember there were days when I would make a survey back in my consulting business when it would take me like almost a day to have the survey fully set up and ready to go. And I was done with this in like 5 minutes, and I really thought like I must be missing something. There must be something broken, and it was just right. So way to go, Typeform.
For me, at least, it's $59 a month. Do you think that's high or low?
It does seem high. I thought about a bunch of other tools like Tally, and there's a bunch of other ones. They do charge you based on the number of responses that you get too. And so it's like, I really don't want to like undershoot this. I'd love to just, lock in the $50 plan. But if you think about it, like for all the things that you get in a tool like Typeform, if you care about the survey you're running and you want to get good data back from it, like that's totally reasonable.
I used it recently too, because when we launched the recruiting arm, I had to figure out what questions to ask. I'm not a recruiter by trade. So of course I went to ChatGPT and asked for what I should ask other people. And then I dumped that into Typeform. And like you said, like it was truly in a moment when it came out as an actual 19 question survey. And before that point, I kind of felt held hostage that all my survey data was in Typeform. So I kept just paying the $59 a month. I don't want to lose it. It retains me. But when I saw that happen, I was thinking, okay, this is a new realm of workflow productivity that I didn't have before.
Wait, you were paying before because your data was there? You realize you can just set up an automation where you just sync any data that comes in to Google Sheets, and then you just have the data in your Google Sheets?
So I had some surveys live, such as advertise with us. And so every once in a while, something drips in.
You didn't want the broken link on your site.
And I didn't want the broken link on top of that. So I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. But yes, I should have found out about that earlier.
Yeah, well, way to go, Typeform.
If you want Kyle to try your product and watch me react like a person who doesn't understand technology in real time, please email ben@mostlymetrics.com. Don't email me because I don't check it. Email ben@mostlymetrics.com and Kyle will give you a great review of your product. Kyle, I think we're 3 for 3 in these episodes. When are you finally going to announce to your newsletter crew that we have a podcast?
I am teeing up an announcement as we speak.
All right. Big things in the works. Anything else you're writing about this week that you're excited about?
I'm writing about becoming an actual solopreneur. You've convinced me that this is the promised land. Maybe I'll move to Florida eventually, but giving it the college try.
And I want to be happy from Bob's Barricades. Thanks for joining us today, everybody.
Mostly Growth is a Mostly Media production. Executive produced by Ben Hillman. That's me. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of CJ, Kyle, and Ben. Just some guys who love talking growth. Mostly. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe. Give us 5 stars or hit like. The algorithm overlords thank you. Drink water, call your mom, and have a great day.